What more can the Washington Commanders do to make their city and their fans proud? I mean, that was enough for 5 years, right? Getting to the NFC Championship game, a Cinderella run throughout the season, and the quarterback of the future. No, there is an expectation that under Jayden Daniels, this team can be competing for Super Bowls just about every year. If we got to the NFC Championship game in year one, we could be doing it consistently. So let's see what the Washington Commanders will be. What would their 2025 regular season entail? Let's do a prediction and preview for the upcoming year. Before we start all that, have to understand that the secondary's improved. I love the kid that they took out of Ole Miss, Trey Amos. He had been an Alabama transfer. They brought over Deebo Samuel from the San Francisco 49ers. Hand it to him, throw it to him, pitch it to him. Any way he can get his hands on the football, he is going to produce. Of course, one of my favorite players in the draft a couple years ago, Jimmy Newton from the Illinois Fighting Illini in the middle of that defense next to Daron Payne. Makes for a foundation up front that is very good. Will we see Javon Kinlaw, who didn't play with San Francisco, went to the Jets? Like, he's still trying to establish himself as a foundational, a career player for a team. And then in the middle, Bobby Wagner still going at it with Frankie Louvu. The offense will run through Jayden Daniels, and that's exactly how week one is going to shake up. They've got the Giants at home, got them winning 24-14. Of course, this might not be the best team to play early on, with most likely the best front four in the National Football League in the entire world going into next season for Daniels to try and shake off the rust. He can do that just by dumping it, like getting the ball out to the perimeter to Terry McLaurin, let him catch and run, because that's where the New York Giants are a little bit weaker, is on the outside in the back end of that defense and being able to get it out there. But the threats that they have, like Brian Burns roaming, Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence, like that, Tavon Thibodeau, they have guys that can move at an extremely high level, freak athletes. So Daniels maybe not try to run the ball 15 times in that game. Look at a bit more of the longevity side. That was a bit of the knock for me, was just like that wiry frame. How healthy can he stay comparatively towards the guys like Bo Nix or Caleb Williams, Drake May? Obviously, it looks like it is working out just fine. Week 2, they're on Thursday Night Football. It's a short week. That's kind of like my reasoning. Don't run Jayden Daniels 15 times because they're at Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers, and one of the best defenses in football in the sense of taking the football away was Green Bay, and they add on the outside on the offense, Matthew Golden, to that run game. That's when Green Bay is at their best in the new modern era with Matt LaFleur, is establishing the run game, play action off of it, and letting either Rodgers or who it had been throwing it on the outside for quick 6-7 yards, or Devontae Adams for 14-15 in the intermediate parts of the field. And then the defense comes up trying to stop that. You beat them over the top, like what we have seen from Green Bay. That's what LaFleur is trying to establish. And against the Commanders, where I would say like Mikey Sanders still, Trey Amos, what they might lack is like that breakaway speed. So a guy like Matthew Golden, in the sense of like running with a player of that caliber, or Christian Watson, Jaden Reed. The Packers have some very fast players that can flat out fly. That poses a tough matchup. Maybe a big player or two comes in that game. Would like to see Washington be able to play a bit of bend, don't break, cover to just let the Packers move the ball down the field and try and stop them in the red zone. But overall, one of the better matchups early on in the season. 1-1, everything's fine. Playing at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. Of course, the Raiders are a lot more interesting this year than they have been previously. That's what happens when you take the Heisman runner-up in Ashton Genty, rushed like 2,000 yards a year ago, taken 6th overall from a non-Power 4 school. But I think that Washington handles them. That's why you'd have Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner. In the middle, there is Daron Payne and Jimmy Newton to stop Ashton Genty. And in the middle, of course, the question is, can Bobby be able to still cover a guy like Brock Bowers? I don't know if there's a linebacker in football that can cover him consistently, whether it be Fred Warner, whether it be Roquan Smith. Like, he's just a very tough guy to cover, but they can limit his production, make him go to the outside and target Jack Bech. But a win 19-10 for Washington, and as they move to 2-1. This is before a road game at the Atlanta Falcons, and Michael Penix Jr. is going to be coming into himself because of an elevated play on the defensive side of the ball. Raheem Morris's defense is going to be better than it was a year ago. Why? we just got to talk about the draft. They decided this is the year. We're going to sacrifice future capital because this depth of pass rushers are better now. An interesting choice because they gave up the 26th, they traded up back in the first round for the 26th overall pick, when you would think that the peak for the Atlanta Falcons might be like picking 22nd in the draft, going to be a lot higher. But they don't need a quarterback. Michael Penix is their future, so they're going to go take the edge and be better now and establish themselves as a threat. And I think that James Pierce off the edge along with Jalen, those are issues that are brought up. Like, that is a team foundationally that'll be tough for Jayden Daniels to scamper away from. Those guys are terrific athletes, and have the Commanders losing 28-27 in a tight one at the Atlanta Falcons. At 2-2, a road game looming against the Los Angeles Chargers figures to be a very tough showdown at SoFi Stadium. Of course, Jim Harbaugh will have a good defense. They're going to run the football, and he's going to be telling Justin Herbert not to turn it over. Easier said than done. I have this game being a bit higher scoring, 30-23, one of the better matchups of the year. Two teams that are looking to prove themselves in the division. Washington's we're looking at the Eagles. We feel like we can overtake them. We beat them last year. We could have played better in the NFC Championship game, had a bit more ball security and taken advantage of opportunities in that game. Found a way to limit Saquon Barkley. Easier said than done. But against the Chargers, it's we'll stop Marion Hampton and force Justin Herbert to throw it to McConkey or Harris or Quentin Johnson or some of the tight ends. That's the style that we're going to play, and trust that Jayden Daniels can make plays when we need him to against that Chargers secondary. Have a win. 3-2, they beat the Chargers, and that sets up the showdown once again with the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. Bear with me here because this game might be the Bears' entire season. If anything, it's beating the Packers once next year or finding a way to beat the Packers and the Commanders. Chicago needs this game as much as they've needed a game in a long time because of the way that ended. Caleb Williams has to beat Jayden Daniels. If he falls to Jayden Daniels 0-2, no matter how the luck or what you want to call it, Tyreek Stevenson waving to the crowd, being 0-2 against the guy that you were taken ahead of would be not catastrophic, but it would be a very tough look for Chicago and almost solidify that Jayden Daniels was the better selection. Why I give a tiny bit of pushback here is the fact that both these games are in Washington, but Chicago's offense poses threats. Like I talked about, a little bit of the speed, which could be a huge threat to Washington's style of play. Luther Burden, 4-4-1. Odunze, 4-4-5. DJ Moore on the outside, right? Those three wide receivers, 4-4-2. Swift out of the backfield, like you've already seen him, had that breakaway run that put Chicago in the game when they were down 12-0, 7-12. And of course, Colston Loveland over the middle. These weapons that Chicago has in this game come in at a time right off of the bye week. Chicago will be a tough out for that. That's why I have them losing that game. They dropped to 3-3 on this season. Might be saying that is not the kind of start that we want. Takes a bit of a turn. It's at the Cowboys and they're at the Chiefs. These are two huge matchups. Haven't pulling it out against Dak Prescott, 23-20. What you need to understand about the Washington Commanders is last year was an incredible run. It was the Cinderella story. Probably should have lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a Baker Mayfield fumble. It just felt like Tampa was in complete control of that game and gave it away. And the Detroit Lions had a better roster than Washington. Jahmyr Gibbs ran all over the place. They just didn't have anything on defense. They had been taking the ball away all year. Even without Aiden Hutchinson up front, like Aleem McNeil, that was a good Detroit team that just didn't have half of their team playing in that game. A win against the Dallas Cowboys, moving Washington to 4-3 on the season before a road game at the Kansas City Chiefs. Probably one of the top 5 most circled with a big red Sharpie and then highlighted with a neon bright green marker is at Arrowhead Stadium. Jayden Daniels versus Patrick Mahomes in a shootout, and a type of game where there's going to be fireworks everywhere. Can Jayden announce himself to the league that he can be on a caliber and out-duel Patrick Mahomes? And he does it on the road to move the Washington Commanders to 5-3 on the season, beating them. Why does it end up happening? His legs. Some of these other teams, like I mentioned, like with the Falcons with their athleticism, or Chicago with like Edmonds and Edwards, like is it a pretty good duo. We saw Jayden juke Edwards out of his shoes last year in that game, but like Montez Sweat on the edge is a crazy athlete. The Chiefs, I don't see like that guy in the defensive core or on the edge, or they have two guys that can really contain Jayden. I think he can scramble for 120 in this game against Kansas City. Like, things break down, they don't run the ball, and they lean on Daniels' legs. 5-3 on the year before a Sunday night game against the Seattle Seahawks at home. Who will be the quarterback at that point for Seattle? Probably figures to be Sam Darnold. The receiving core is good enough, and the defense has enough talent on it for that Seattle doesn't have their season explode in their face midway through the year, and being able to get the ball on the perimeter to Jackson Smith-Njigba and Cooper Kupp, similar skill sets. Have the Commanders struggling to move the ball. Like I talked about, that one guy, I think Nick Emmanwori can be that guy that shuts down Jayden Daniels' legs. That's usually what it looks like to me, is these mobile quarterbacks. Who is that guy that a team can bring down into the box and play in that role, that Fred Warner, that Roquan Smith type of role, like that Ohio State Caleb Downs kind of guy that can play near the line of scrimmage and just take out the threat of rushing the ball, maybe take away your top tight end or your gimme over the middle of the field. And Seattle has that in Emmanwori. Have the Commanders dropping to 5-4 on the season before a home game against the Detroit Lions. Lions have so much on this one. They were just one of the more devastated teams that you've seen in recent memory. 1 seed, they can get both games at home to get to the Super Bowl. It's everything that you hope for as a fan, and for them to just give up all those points to Daniels, I like a win for Detroit. The weapons, Amon-Ra in the middle, one of the better blockers, getting his hands on you and moving you where you don't want to go. And then Jameson Williams, that speed over the top, and Laporta over the middle. It's such a challenge for Washington to cover, and that's not even what their strength was. It was handing the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs and him running all over the place. He can do the exact same thing, as I think he gets even better next year, as Montgomery, it was a bit banged up last year, and he didn't stay as fresh as he could have, but we saw how explosive that offense was when Gibbs was getting more carries. They lose. They're 5-5 on the year, but this is where like they really flex their muscle. There's questions circling like the play of Jayden. What has happened? Is this a sophomore slump? A huge win in Madrid, of all places, against the Miami Dolphins, 46-17. The immediate next week, he silences the critics, throws for 4 touchdowns, and runs for 1 or 2, and they beat the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins just don't pose a threat to the Commanders in this sense. Like Tua Tagovailoa, the mobile quarterbacks is where I see. I know I mentioned Jared Goff, but Miami, as of the recording of this, I don't know if Tyreek Hill is going to be a Miami Dolphin. I'm currently in Africa when you're watching this video. I'm going to see the Great Migration, going to be in Tanzania and Kenya, going to on safari, see some lions. So if I'm mentioning things like right now, I'm concerned about Miami and Tyreek Hill. You just said like all this speed, that's where Washington gets beat. Don't know if Tyreek Hill is going to be a Miami Dolphin, and there's uncertainty within that roster. Have the Dolphins getting blown out by Washington. 6-5 heading into the bye week. It comes at a good time before a tough set of games, a lot of them being against divisional opponents to end the years. I say tough against Broncos, then the Vikings, but then it gets a bit easier. A win on Sunday Night Football against the Broncos establishes themselves like, okay, the Commanders are a playoff legitimate team. Like, they can really be what they were last year and win at big games. 25-17. Bo Nix struggles to elevate that offense and find who is the one guy? Who is that one player on that Broncos offense that's going to get separation and get open to be able to have Bo Nix be easier? He had Troy Franklin for Oregon. You know, there's Terrence Ferguson for them, but is Troy Franklin going to produce the same way he did in college in the NFL? It remains to be seen. That win puts them to 7-5 before they are at the Minnesota Vikings and have them winning on the road in this big matchup against J.J. McCarthy. We get to see Daniels versus McCarthy once and for all. Hopefully, both of them are healthy. do get to see it. That's so tough. Jefferson and Addison, Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, the pieces, and then of course Jonathan Allen, Hargrave, Van Ginkel, Harrison Smith is still there in the back end, and Dallas Turner probably is developing more into a role in that Minnesota Vikings defense. Like the fact he didn't start on that defense last year as a top first-round pick just goes to show you how good the guys in front of him were. It's like a hot top 10 recruit in the country, 5-star that doesn't start until year 3 that he's in the system because the guys that are older are just great players. They get that win, move to 8-5 on the year. The next week, they're at the Giants, got to beat him again, 24-21. They move to 9-5 on this season. This team is rolling at this point. The defense is playing at getting enough stops. Jayden Daniels is coming up with the plays he needs to elevate the team. Who's the quarterback going to be? Like, is Jackson Dart playing against Daniels in this game? That would probably be more fun as a fan. Have the Giants a big question mark as far as, like, you're going to develop Jackson Dart, but wouldn't that mean, like, you're going to be doing it with the same coach? The Giants have that crazy schedule this where you have to play Washington twice and the Eagles twice, as well as the NFC North in that gauntlet. So it would appear the Giants have a bad year, and then you're going to fire the coach after you just drafted a quarterback in the first round. Like, what are the Giants doing? Is it Jameis Winston? Is it Dart? Is it Russell Wilson? That's why I have the Commanders winning, moving to 9-5 on this season before a home game against the Philadelphia Eagles. This game's going to be on December 20th. That is the most fun day of football in the entire season. Why? The college football playoff is that day. 3 playoff games. Commanders, Eagles, the Bears, Packers is also on that day. The NFL doesn't give a crap about college. We're going to have 2 massive rivalry games the same day as the 3 college football playoff games, and you can bet those 2 NFL games are going to get better ratings than whatever college football playoff games are at the same time of them. Like, almost practically guarantee it. A win against the Eagles, 20-17, moves them to 10-5 on the year. Why I think they beat the Eagles is the fact that Washington is going to find a way. They're going to allocate all those resources to stopping Saquon and force Jalen Hurts to go to someone down the field. Is it going to be A.J. Brown? That's a tough cover. Devontae Smith, someone down down the sideline, being able to find one of those guys, and in a game where Washington needs to step up and get a win. They face the Cowboys next week on Christmas at home. I got them with a win, 38-24 on Christmas. A great present. It clinches themselves a spot in the playoffs. Not exactly sure, like going into the last week, do the Eagles have a spot already locked up? Kind of think it might all ride in the division on that week 18 game, with the Commanders being 11-5 and potentially the Philadelphia Eagles being 11-5. Winner takes the division and gets maybe the 2nd or 3 seed in the NFC. Don't think particularly like the winner of the NFC East is coming down to be the 1 seed in the playoffs. It just seems like the schedules are a bit too tough since the NFC East plays the North, and like the Eagles got to play the top, like the Rams and the Bucks as well on that schedule. 11-6 overall. The Commanders get to the postseason once again, and then it's all a mystery of what will happen in the playoffs again for Washington after another good season with Jayden. He continues to maybe get a little bit more stats that are a bit sexier, maybe has a bit of the slumps throughout the season, some question marks. But look, the amount of expectations on this kid, they're ridiculous. Like, bring it a bit down to earth, understand where Washington has been for like the last 30 years as a franchise in the NFL. That last year was incredible, and just making the playoffs will be continued like progress. That will be a fine result because the NFC is very tough. Let me know what you think of Washington. Am I on the right track? Or am I wrong? Or am I correct? Let me know down in the comments. And also, let me know that you subscribe. Make sure to subscribe for more content in the future. And I will see you guys next time. I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Best player in college football. That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blunder. Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Blunder. To the 40, 35, 30. Espinosa to the 20.